Bonjour everyone, I am Anne-Lise Cailliez and welcome to Parlez-vous CEO, where we ditch the corporate talk and get real about entrepreneurship. Each week, I chat with founders and CEOs who build businesses their way, through the failures, pivots, and breakthroughs. And they bring the fire. Plus, I'll drop some golden nuggets of wisdom from my own entrepreneurial journey. This is your space to grow, learn, and evolve with a true growth mindset. Remember, success isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Now let's kick things off and get this party started. Hello, bonjour, bonjour, hello. Welcome to another episode of Parlez-vous CEO. My name is Anne-Lise Cailliez and I am your host. For those who are just joining the podcast, we're Brandora and we're specializing in helping real estate companies scale their revenue. If you want to learn how to take your business to the next level, you want to make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop the word growth in the DMs. We read all our DMs. Today, we have a very special guest, and I'm excited to have Jennie Wetter with us. I am very impressed by her profile and all the things she's achieved, and she has a very interesting background, and I look forward to sharing that with our listeners today. Jennie, hi, so happy to have you here with us today. In your own words, could you share your story about your background and introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. My background, well, I've been in real estate for 20 years, so I'm not a newcomer. And like a lot of people, I think they find real estate as a second career or maybe as a combination of all of their skills put together. And I think that's really what best describes me. I have a bachelor's background in psychology. I had always worked in the service businesses. And then I'm very medically minded. And so I have a graduate degree in physical therapy. And so I always intended to be in the medical field. My whole family's in the medical field. And once I got into physical therapy school, some very interesting changes happened in the industry, such that when I got out of school with a pretty incredible skill set, the whole industry had been whacked due to cuts in Medicare at the time, and there weren't jobs. And so we had to think outside the box, people who graduated in my era and around my era, and think about where we could transfer our skills in other places. And I say that because I think that's important. When we talk about real estate, you're transferring skills a lot of times, and you really have to think about all your different skills. So what I did, I was very passionate about people with disabilities, and I even had private clients that I worked with who were paralyzed, and they traveled all over the country for business, and I accompanied them. And when I did that, I recognized that it was really difficult as a person with a disability to travel. And I thought, A, there has to be a way that I can work within the aviation industry to help make this better. And B, my sense is, going in the back of my brain, I bet people are getting hurt. And I bet that the air carriers are getting sued. And so maybe there's a way that I can come in the middle and have an impact. And so I did that. I did that for a number of years. It was very rewarding. It was very challenging. I was, to the best of my knowledge, one person really trying to do what I was doing throughout the United States. I even got to go to Europe and do some work in Europe. I worked with the FAA directly, which became the TSA. I was working with the Department of Transportation. I just was doing some really, really cool things that were entrepreneurial. I didn't think of myself as an entrepreneur at the time, but I guess that's what happened. I was also working in a corporation in a risk management capacity. That's how I ultimately got elevated to being able to do more on a national scale. So I was working intimately with contracts and, understanding risk management, again, applies down the road to real estate. September 11th changed the aviation industry forever, as people who are my age know. And so my world changed a lot after that. And ultimately, I left Atlanta and I moved to small town Washington, just an hour north of where I am now. And my thought at the time was I was going to work in a traditional risk management capacity for a large company or one of the big insurance brokerages that were located in Seattle. Or maybe I was going to do more aviation related things. But where I moved, I was a little bit of a Pollyanna, thinking that I could easily commute to Seattle. But if anybody's been to Washington, they know that we have the Puget Sound that separates the Olympic Peninsula from Seattle. And so it was going to be more than a 2-hour commute one way, including a ferry, for me to get to work. And I literally just kind of threw my hands up and said, well, what am I going to do? And I think that happens to a lot of people who end up getting into real estate. It's, well, what do you think? So that was 2004. And I have to be honest, I did not have good experiences with real estate agents in selling houses in Atlanta. Real estate agents did not have a good reputation at that time. It was particularly bad, I think. I think it's improved quite a bit. But in 2004, it was kind of the wild, wild west. And so my thought was, well, what if I can take this entire background that I have that is very, very service-based? It's about empathy. It's about gaining a deep understanding of what people need and want. It's bringing an educated perspective, risk management, contracts, all these things to the table. What if I could provide a different type of service than that, unfortunately, used car salesperson label that a lot of real estate agents had at the time? So that was my motivation for giving it a shot, that in addition to needing to have a job. And that's how I got started.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing
I know it's a crazy story, but everybody has one.
This is great how you came from PT in aviation and helping people with disability to risk management to transitioning to real estate. And I picked up that your family was also in the medical field. Yeah, same here. I'm the first one doing business. Yeah, all my parents, my sisters, my aunts, everybody is a doctor.
It is really funny. Pretty much everyone in my family is somewhere in the medical field and always has been. And I'm the lone person who left Wisconsin, which is where I'm from. And I do think that's relevant probably to a different part of the conversation, that I have a Midwestern background, because that gets into work ethic and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm the only person who left Wisconsin in my entire family, and I'm doing something different, but that's okay.
I love that. Are they seeing you as the black sheep, or are they supportive?
A little bit of both.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there is something to say about the people that leave the family structure like that. And I live in New York, and there's a lot of people like that in New York, and we regroup. A lot of us really, are coming from certain country, and families were doing like specific type of jobs, and we all decided to come out and come and play in New York. And I think that makes I'm tapping myself on the back and my friends, but that makes a lot of people who are very driven, that are not here by chance, who are very motivated, very brave, risk takers, pioneers. So I think there is something to say about black sheeps.
I think you're right. Thank you. I'll remind my family the next time we bring it up.
I love that. And so I'm sure that one of the first deals that you had were probably very memorable as you studied in real estate. Could you share with our listeners the story of your first client in real estate?
Sure. I'm sure I can. It was so interesting coming from a very rigid workaholic background. And I throw that in there too, because I do believe that there is some of that is important if you're going to be successful in real estate, is you have to approach it like a full-time job. And I was used to going to an office or traveling, all the time. And so I approached real estate the exact same way. It's interesting. A lot of people who get into real estate, they do it because they know people, that they have a whole sphere of influence or whatever. I moved to Washington. I knew no one. Absolutely no one. I was in a new place. I didn't know anyone. I had no sphere of influence. I had nothing. And so I just went to the office and I worked for 8 hours a day, and I made myself learn as much as I could. I didn't allow myself to get, I'm dating myself, but a Garmin, which was around before smartphones and built-in GPSs in all of our cars. I wouldn't let myself get one because I wanted to learn via a map book my way around my areas. And so I toured vacant homes. I drove every street in multiple counties trying to get my bearings and figure out, where I was and what I was doing. And I tried to learn as much as possible. And ultimately I got hooked up with my first buyer client. She was looking for a home in Bremerton, Washington. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I had the worst case of imposter syndrome And I think many, many people do when they're going through their first transactions. What am I doing? I know absolutely nothing. How can I pretend that I can be of service to this person? And I think about that to this day. It took a long, long time for me to feel like I knew exactly what I was doing. And sometimes I'll tell new brokers and even my seasoned brokers that every week in this business, every day is different and you learn something new every day. So I call it the real estate flu that you have when you first get into the industry, because you have this horrible pit in your stomach that keeps you up at night because you're worried that something's going to fall apart or that you're not doing something right for your client and that you don't know what you're doing. And all of that is true. And the truth is, everybody has to go through it. And if you don't have that sense of the real estate flu, like I call it, then I'm not sure that at least you wouldn't be a good fit for my company, because that's the kind of person that I want. I want people who really, really deeply care and are terrified that they're not doing the right things and understand that they have a ton to learn.
Mhm. I love hearing that. I love also how you're normalizing the imposter syndrome, and that yes, you might feel it that way, but I want to work with people who are pushing through that, understand it, yet put in the work. I love hearing that. And in going back to imposter syndrome, because this is something that really fascinates me. I didn't even realize that I myself had imposter syndrome until, I'm going to say, a month ago. I was not
Really?
even question. I mean that I'm working with coaches. I love self-improvement. I do therapy. I did not know I had imposter syndrome. I thought, my thoughts were just fact, so I didn't think it. And I'm surrounded by female entrepreneurs and we speak of it all the time. I didn't know. And it was really like a aha moment where I realized, oh, my thoughts are not correct. It's imposter syndrome. And so what would be your methodology to overcome it? Because I think it's okay to have the thoughts, but it's what do you do with them?
Oh, that's a really great question. And let me just say that I did not get over imposter syndrome quickly. And I also will tell you that I deal with imposter syndrome at every level that I have moved up and changed in real estate. There's your first client, then there's your first listing, then there's your first $1 million client or your first $1 million listing. And then I went from well, the size of my company has ebbed and flowed, but am I the right kind of leader? Am I this? Am I that? So for me, imposter syndrome is probably something that's a driving factor for me, is that need to, okay, I've got it. What do I do with it? How do I overcome it? And gosh, it's learning. In my opinion, you have to be willing to learn all the time. And that is something else. One of my really important manager in my first mentor in risk management when I was in the aviation industry. And there again, I had a master's in physical therapy. I didn't know the first thing about aviation contracts, right? In this big giant company. And they up and moved me to Atlanta and they gave me this pretty office. And I walk into my boss's office and he said to me, the one thing you better never do is think you know something that you don't and tell somebody you don't know. He's like, you need to learn and you need to always tell people, I might not know the answer to that, but I'll find out. And I tell people in real estate that is so important because frankly, I hear a lot of BS all the time. And I tell people, don't you dare BS a client because you could be putting yourself or them in a potentially precarious legal situation. There's just all kinds of stuff. So sorry, I need to segue back to imposter syndrome. It comes down to learning and it comes down to a commitment to believing in yourself, but also believing that there's always more to learn and that it's okay that you don't know everything. And if you just keep having that commitment to learning new things, that you will push through that level and you'll get to the next one. And, you'll get to the next one. I was in a team meeting just earlier in the week, and one of my younger brokers had said that he'd been in a listing appointment for a large listing, like much bigger than he had done before. And he's just like, I don't exactly know why they didn't pick me, but man, do I have imposter syndrome. And I just, I looked at him and I said, we all go through it. I still have it today. And by the way, those big listing appointments, they don't get easier. They get harder when you get to my level. So get used to it.
I love that. I love hearing how you're normalizing imposter syndrome. And the more I think of it, maybe the way is to surrender to it. Because what does it mean? It means you're growing. It means you're getting out of your comfort zone. So maybe making the correlation of like, it's not that it's discomfort. It means I am growing. So this is normal and this is just a sign of growth. It's not that it's the truth and you're not good enough.
Right.
It's just you're getting out of your comfort zone. So it's like growing a muscle, right? Like if you're
It
going to
is.
the gym. And so I think it's a dance. It's finding a way to befriend the imposter syndrome,
You're
recognizing as a
saying it.
sign of growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And not allowing it to take you down, but allowing it to, okay, you're giving me anxiety because you know that this is something you need to do and it's not easy, and just keep working at it. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that angle. I think it's very useful. I'm sure it's going to be very useful for our listeners. So as you're talking about your agent who's going on his bigger listing, and I want to talk about business development in general. And so how do you have your team find new clients? What are your systems? How do you do it? Do you love it? Do they love it? And what are methodologies?
Well, that's a great question. My company is set up, very different than some others. I don't do a ton of lead gen for my agents. I have tried that and spent a lot of money and failed. Part of why I have remained a small company and will always remain a small company is because I learned trying to be a bigger company that it doesn't allow me to do the things I want and need to do for my specific clients. So I have a small company, and when people come to work, I don't recruit. I've never recruited. The people who work at Infinity, they come to me, and they come to me because of the reputation and knowing what I do to service our clients and what I bring to the table. So I expect them to have their own way, whether it's via sphere of influence, or they're good on social media, or, they're willing to do paid lead gen, however they want to do it. I expect that from them. I'm not just going to be a handout person. I don't need to do that. I can make more money selling real estate myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it brings a level of professional into my company that might be different than some other places. And it's fun when we get together in a meeting because they each have their own ways and their own skill sets. I've got a couple people who are just dynamite at open houses, just dynamite. And I listen to them and I watch them and I think, wow, you're really awesome. And then I've got somebody else who's really good with investors and also with some of the, the lead gen sources, being a Redfin partner, stuff like that. So everybody has their own. Couple of my gals are just amazing on social media, and so they do that, or they throw events. Those are also really popular. I'm really proud of all of them. It's really fun to watch.
So each of your agents has their own methodology on how to find clients, and you let them run the show with whatever fits best their personality and what works for them.
100%. Because I know that there are companies, and lots of them out there, who are very structured and very scripted, and you do this, and this. I have never been able to be that person. I'm not structured and scripted. And so I don't think it's fair of me to expect that of other people, because I would be a major imposter if I was, do as I say, not as I do kind of person. I don't really believe in that.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. And speaking of marketing, do you have any stories of the best marketing you've ever done and the worst marketing you've done? It's usually like residential brokers usually have fun stories around that.
Well, it's you probably don't even want me to say this on your podcast, but I feel like
No, I really do.
I feel like my weakness is marketing. I honest to God feel that my weakness is marketing, and other people who know me might tell you that that's completely crazy and, they think I'm fantastic. But to me, my marketing comes from the service I provide to my clients and then the things that they say about me. Best marketing I have comes from my clients. They are willing to go on camera and talk about me. They are willing to go online. A huge thing that led to my success is I was leaps and leaps and bounds ahead on the review game than anybody else. I had 100 reviews before anybody else had any. And so that truly catapulted me to a next level, because when it's out there, right? Who's the best real estate agent, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Jennie Wetter, 100 reviews, so-and-so 0. Who are you going to call? And then loving on your sphere. You really have to love on your sphere and stay in touch with your past clients and be a huge resource to them in the future. What am I not good at marketing? Well, I'm not good at social media. I just, the idea of having to create a reel or a post and put myself in it and do the things that other people are incredible at doing, to me, that would be an epic fail.
I could see you being very good at it. You're very eloquent. You present very well on camera. So I could see you being very successful at it.
Well, I do YouTube videos, and I do YouTube videos about my community, about neighborhoods, about why you should retire in Gig Harbor and move to the area. But I have a camera person. I have time to kind of think about what it is that I'm doing. And I really enjoy that. But the idea of having to carry my phone around and film myself is just, I'm old. I'm really old. That is not natural for me. And so I watch some of my younger whizzes do it, and I'm really proud of them for it, but it doesn't work for me.
I hear you. It can be intimidating to go on camera when you're not used to it. But like anything new, it can be a bit daunting when you haven't done it. I think the best way is do the reps. Same for the gym. You're going to suck at first to lift weight or, to do any kind of exercise that you just start with. You can't expect that your first video is going to be good. It's really not going to be good, and that's okay. Because also, if it was good, it means you took too long to launch it. That's what I tell my clients. Sometimes people want to wait 6 months, sometimes almost a year to launch a website, their first website, because they have this grandiose idea of perfection, but really they wasted 6 months to a year to launch. Yes. I keep on saying you have to be a little bit embarrassed by what you're launching, a little bit. Otherwise, it means you waited too long.
Correct.
Because, marketing is a work in progress. You launch, you take action, and then you revisit and you optimize. But you need to launch to get more eyeballs on it, to get reaction, and to actually see if it's working. Otherwise, you're stuck in your head. You have ideas of what could work, but you're not exposing your ideas to the world. So it's just in the world of fantasy. It's not reality, and you can't use it.
You are 100% correct. I will also say that as a broker, you have to really hone in on where your strengths really are. And for example, one of my brokers, her strength is she's very, very gregarious, and she loves to be part of the community. And so her strength is in putting together these community events and bringing community together that way. And she even started a website called What's Good Gig Harbor. And she posts every day about a good thing to do with your family or your friends. And, she's got tens of thousands of followers.
Right.
And that's how they've gotten to know her. And so she has honed in on that part of her skill. And when I say other people of open houses, if you're a whiz at open houses, then continue being an even better whiz at open houses. I think, and I've done this myself over the years, you go to a conference and you're just fire hosed, right? All the time. Every day we're fire hosed with, you should be doing this and this and this and this and this. And, you have to just pick a couple and say, I'm going to be really good at this. And then you move forward. And if it's Instagram, fantastic. If it's TikTok, fantastic. If it's something else altogether, like community events or whatever it is, that's great. Don't try to spread yourself so thin that you're just going to not be good at anything.
Right. And also then it's really hard to track progress when you're working on so many channels at the same time. And it can feel discouraging. Whereas if you hone in on a couple that you enjoy doing, that you really track, that's really how also you can be happy with yourself, because you can measure the progress and not spread yourself too thin as you're saying.
100%. And another thing I would say is when you're so focused on marketing, you sometimes forget that what we do is we service our clients. And so really, I go back to the best marketing you have is what you do for your clients and then what they turn around and say about you. And you do that right and you build your reputation that way and you capitalize on what those people can do for you. And there's your marketing. So, don't be so focused on your everyday Instagram posts that you forget that you've got those 5 clients sitting in the background that you're supposed to be busting your tail for.
Absolutely, especially for residential broker. I mean, it's the same for commercial brokers. Best use of their time is not necessarily to do marketing. They need to be doing only what they can do, which is client facing, the strategy for clients, not necessarily doing social posts. I mean, if you're starting new, you want to do everything yourself. When you reach that level, there's really no point in you doing the marketing. Some other people can do that very well for you. You only show up on camera, it's like one time a week for 30 minutes, you get your content, then somebody takes care of it and repurpose it to different channels. But absolutely, especially for top brokers, not the best use of their time to be there doing their own marketing themselves. And Jennie, if you had a magic wand to solve the biggest challenge in your business right now, what would it be?
Lower interest rates? Can I say that? Gosh, okay. The biggest challenge in my industry, I do believe that in some ways I'm seeing the commitment to service start to diminish again. Because people are getting more focused on what can I do with AI? What can I do here? What can I do there? And because I'm such a service oriented, empathetic person at heart, my magic wand would just be that everybody remains focused on how to actually serve our clients, how to listen to your client, how to, not be a moron in a transaction and to be a good communicator, follow the steps and do the right thing.
I'm with you. I'm a lover of technology. I love AI. I love automations. I love using tech to support my business, but there are things you cannot replace. And it's that human connection, the relationship, and the psychology.
Yes, the psychology.
Exactly. That can never be replaced. And so, what's your favorite thing about real estate?
Well, it's the people. I meet amazing people. I love hearing their stories and I love trying to figure out how to help them. I've developed a niche and I'm very fortunate that I have the ability to do this, but I have a full service concierge program where I can not only assist with how to prep your home in the best light for marketing, I can assist financially as well. And so I can walk in and I can offer, okay, here are all the things we need to do. And by the way, every year, the prep process for a home gets more and more and more important. Going back to psychology again of buyers, I've been with buyers for 20 years and I've watched buyers' psychology changed. 20 years ago, buyers had the time and the mental capacity and the desire to buy a home, do home improvements, put in sweat equity, do all this kind of stuff. And then as the decades have evolved to now, every family, every single person, every older person, they're so busy that they don't have the time and mental capacity or the vision to be able to put sweat equity into their home. So I tell sellers 9.5 out of 10 buyers, when I'm asking what their priorities are, move-in ready is at the top. And so for a seller, when you're sitting down saying that to a seller, it's like, okay, seller, if 9.5 want move-in ready, you've got to have a move-in ready house. So how are we going to do that? And so I'm able to come in and assist them with the most important projects. We paint, we do new flooring, we do landscaping, those most important first impression projects that attract the most buyers. And I have the ability financially to assist with that. And they don't have to pay me back until closing. And so I'm very, very fortunate that I can, I've reached a place in my career that I can do that. But, I can really help people that way, and I just, that's the part of my job that I love the most is when I can go into a situation where I know someone needs my help. I do a lot of work with people who've just lost a loved one, or an older person who has to move into assisted living and they've been in their house for 40 plus years. What do? I can go in and offer a full service end-to-end solution, and they don't even have to pay anything out of pocket until closing.
Wow, that's amazing. I've never heard of any brokers doing that before.
It's a
So
lot
you
of
really
work.
do, right? I mean, it's stressful. It's a lot of work. And so you're doing home improvement to help out sellers. You take care of that part. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So a huge part of what I do, and thank God I have an incredible assistant, and this is pretty much her full-time, is manage contractors and manage these projects. And, I don't charge extra for it. I don't charge interest. I don't increase my commission level for it. I just do it because I'm a very service-oriented person and I see the need, and I don't want sellers to leave money on the table, and people say to me, well, why don't I just sell as is? And I say to them, do you know how much of a haircut you're going to take if you sell as is? It's not the $25,000 or $30,000 cost of these repairs. It's 4 or 5 times that much, because nobody has vision and they can't see your online presence has to be perfect. And then you got to get them to the house and they have to be wowed. You you have to do that as a seller, which is tough for people to grasp. So I see the need becoming more and more important. Hopefully we don't burn ourselves out doing it, because it's a lot of work, but it's really fun to see the projects come together and the results, and then how much more they can sell their house for than they would have had we not done those projects.
Yeah, that's amazing. And never thought about starting a business just doing home improvement. I mean, that's completely in synergy with what you're doing. It could be a separate sister company.
Go ahead. Was that a question?
It was a question.
Oh, I thought it was a comment, like, have I ever thought of starting a sister company business? I have. And I tried for a short period of time to start another arm of my company that was a home services business. And once again, it diluted everything I was trying to do. And so we kind of reined it back in, and, we just do it all under one umbrella. So crazy, probably, but it works.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's crazy that you're really giving your sellers the royal treatment. That's amazing. And I'd love to touch on the people that inspire you, the leaders, the influencer, the role models, or if you have a favorite book, a favorite podcast, could you share with our listeners what are the things that you look up to and get inspired by?
Yeah, I mean, I look up to, there are a number of really big influential women that I just love. I think Melinda French Gates is incredible. I think Mackenzie Bezos is incredible because of their philanthropy. I have a huge part of my company is also philanthropy and giving back to our community. And so I see what women like them are doing, and I want to make an impact just in my small community that way. I wish I had time to be an avid book reader. That would be so great, but I don't. And so I read the Wall Street Journal every morning and Forbes, and I listen to a number of those type of podcasts, because I feel that staying on top of what's going on in the world from as much of a middle of the road perspective as possible is really important to what I do. Once again, we have to be a resource to our clients in all different ways. And so when they ask us, well, what do you think is going to happen? What does your crystal ball tell you today? I feel that I have to know at least a little bit of what's going on in order to be able to have that quote unquote wisdom and knowledge to share with not only my clients, but to my other brokers.
And you touched on philanthropy. Could you tell us a bit more about what you're doing with Infinity and your community?
Yes, absolutely. When I founded the company, one of the core values was to give back to the community and to be a resource in the community. But I was doing it on a much smaller kind of, I don't want to say under the table because that's not the right word. I just wasn't publicizing what we were doing. But what happened when COVID started, I went through the crash of the real estate market back in 2007-8, and that was devastating, absolutely devastating for almost all of us. And when they announced the COVID lockdowns, I just remember, I'll never forget how I felt like, here we go again, right? It's not going to be as bad as 08, please God, but here we go again. But we all know what happened to us as real estate professionals during COVID was the exact opposite of what happened in 2008. We flourished while other people really, really went backwards during COVID. So as we were coming out of COVID, I felt so privileged and so grateful that we had been able to flourish while so many people hadn't. And I felt that it was more important than ever to make our Give Back program public, but also to make it such that we're asking community members to participate as well. So I formalized Infinity's Great Give Back program in 2020, and we do a number of things. We support different local charities. We want to make an impact in our local communities. So we pick different local charities. We ask our clients to give us ideas, and we ask our clients to contribute when we're doing things. We might throw an event that is raising money for that specific charity. We do a food drive the first quarter of each year that we ask our clients to participate, and they have a great time with it. So we just feel that not only do we want to give back to our community, but we want to invite the community to do the same thing, because stronger communities build, bigger and better things all the time.
Mm-hmm. I love this. Thank you for sharing. This is really inspiring. It's interesting that you're saying that in the beginning you were doing it, I think you said under the table, because usually, especially real estate companies tend to over communicate. I mean, not over communicate, but communicate on their philanthropy and endeavors in general.
And I can't tell you exactly why, other than I'm just not the typical, big boisterous real estate person. And I'll go back to the crash for just a minute, because, the crash of the real estate market hurt all of us who were in the market pretty badly at the time. And I came out of that asking myself why I was even in real estate. I'm like, I have a master's degree in the medical field. I've traveled the country and the world doing these things. Like, how did I end up in small town Washington with a real estate company that just crashed and burned? So, kind of flying under the radar for a number of years. I did it because I wasn't sure I was going to stay. There was part of me that was like, maybe I should go back into the medical field, right? At the same time, I was building this business, and brokers were approaching me saying, I want to work with you. I was like, well, I might not have the company a year from now. No, you're going to have the company, because we're going to work with you. So really, everything has built very organically. And, I really was pretty quiet about my giving up until 2020. But I'm really proud. It's something, when I think about, what I do, that I think is the most important is the give back. I love the impact that we make with our Give Back program.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing to hear. And Jennie, if you had to give your 20-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be if you were meeting you when you're 20?
Well, keep pushing. It would absolutely be keep pushing. It would be, you have no idea what's coming in the future, and it's not going to be what you expect. And so be open-minded about it. Don't give up. Don't be afraid to pivot and change, and don't get too set in your ways, because the only thing you can count on is change.
I love that. That's just a great piece of advice. And is there any golden nuggets of wisdom that you would like to leave our audience with?
I'll go back to talking about a Midwestern work ethic. And, my entire family comes from Wisconsin, as I mentioned. And if you know other people from the Midwest, there is something about the way that a lot of us are that just, work and dedication is a huge part of what we do. To be successful in real estate, you have to work harder than you've ever imagined you're going to work. There's a reason that 8 out of 10 people who start in real estate don't make it, because it is so much harder than you think it's going to be. So my words of wisdom would be, one, you got to have patience when you're first getting started. Again, more than you could ever imagine needing to have, because it's probably going to take you 6 months to a year to 2 years to get up and rolling. And so just have faith in yourself and know that if you stick with it and you keep working and keep learning, that you will ultimately be successful. And take care of your clients.
I love this. And I'm sure that's going to be really useful to our listeners. And Jennie, so what's coming up next for you?
a European vacation.
Where in Europe? I'm French. So.
I am an avid Formula One racing fan. And so I travel around when I have the opportunity and go to Formula One races. So this year we're going to the Dutch Grand Prix, which is on the coast of Holland. So I'm looking, and I'm going to Iceland. So I'm looking forward to that. But what is on the future? Infinity is going to grow organically like we have been. And our amazing little town is just going to keep growing. And what's in the future for me, it's not to be big. It's not to be the big flamboyant number one. It's to be the brand that is recognized as having the best reputation. You know, if you work with them, whether you're a broker or a buyer or seller, that means something consistent, that means something about elevated, exceptional service. And that's where we're going, and that's where we're going to stay. And I'm really proud of that.
Oh, that's amazing. That's nice to hear. And Jennie, what are the best way to connect with you? Where can people find you?
Sure. You can go to my website, jenniewetter.com. I also have a YouTube channel that you can like or subscribe. And then my Instagram handle is Jennie_Wetter, Infinity RE.
Thank you so much, Jennie, for being here with us on Parlez-vous CEO and sharing your story.
Thank you. It was really fun. I really appreciate you having me, and, good luck.
Thank you so much. And that wraps up today's episode. I am Anne-Lise Cailliez, and I can't wait to join you again next week. Thanks for listening to Parlez-vous CEO today. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. It helps us keep going. And connect with us on Instagram at Parlez-vous CEO. I am Anne-Lise Cailliez, and I know some days are harder than others. On those tough days, think back to why you started. What you're doing today matters, even when you can't see the results yet. Ideas are great, but it's what you do with them that counts. Find everything we talked about today at parlezvousceo.com. See you next week, and you've got this.